what about Obama? I mean, actually, it's his birthday today, so maybe we shouldn't speak ill of him.
Hail Obama. He hasn't turned out very well, but you know, I was for Hillary from the very beginning, as she was an old friend, and I knew she would do a job very well. And then when I realized that this was going to be the historic breakthrough for 13 million people, come on, I'm not going to vote against that. So I was happy to vote for him, happy to see him elected. I'm not happy about his regime. Second, he said 17,000 troops to Afghanistan to mop up. Oh, come on.
I mean, do you think there are any humanitarian reasons for trying to defeat the Taliban?
I am now going to quote from John Quincy Adams. He was asked would the United States join with a bunch of Europeans in a movement to drive the Turks out of Greece. And he turned them down. And they said, but you are a classical scholar. You are the most brilliant president they've ever had here. He said, look, the United States is not a warrior or a paladin. He used that word, a paladin that goes forth to slay foreign monsters. You must look elsewhere for that sort of power in the universe. The United States will fight under no banner other than its own. For were we to do otherwise, we would be mistress of the earth and lose our soul. Okay?
Now, I mean, I guess that applies to World War II as well.
Well, I was an isolationist before it. We'd rush around the world, go to little powers, and are you suffering here in Liberia? You don't mind if we blow up your Capitol building and land the troops on the beach. You'll love it. It's going to be wonderful business for you.
It's interesting, the United States used to be thought of as the world's policeman, which, I mean, I think today it almost sounds sort of benevolent.
So it was meant to be. We would keep the order that the British Empire had been doing for us until we came of age. You met my sidekick. He's a lieutenant in the Navy. He's from Annapolis. And he's head of something called the Veterans Against the Wars. Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks he's a pacifist. He said, I'm not a pacifist. I'm a Navy man. And I love the Navy. And I hate the destruction of the military by the Bush family. They set out to destroy everything that was military because they're too stupid or too venal. They were lying and cheating and stealing money. Or letting the likes of Cheney have all kinds of special rights, as renting troops to us. I mean, the whole thing is vomit-making for us old Americans. And we still exist, you know. We must not be written off.
We've gone so far in the direction of imperialism, and the military has really dominated the government for so long now. Do you think it's possible to enlighten average Americans into just how far we've gone astray?
Well, it can be done. I do it. I don't get all the Americans, and nobody does, but I get some of them.
And even someone of Obama's stature, who's obviously, as you said, a very intelligent man, presumably with real progressive values, and has a vision of what he'd like to see this country be. But even with him, it really doesn't seem like any real change is in the works. Is it systemic? Is that it? Or?
Well, it's a clumsy system that was passed on to us by the founders.
At one point, you suggested a constitutional convention.
Oh, I still want one.
Yeah. What would you change about the Constitution? What types of...
Well, obvious things like throwing out the electoral college.
Mm-hmm.
That was just meant to cool things if there was a difficult election, as there was in 1800, when both Jefferson and Aaron Burr won the presidency.
Right.
We're still living under the fallout from that election.
I'd be worried if there was a constitutional convention, since everything...
Oh, I know they'll get rid of the Bill of Rights. They've already done it.
That's true.
You can only restore it. That's the only radical thing you can do. We want it back.
I wonder if this country would even ask for it back in a constitutional convention.
Well, there'll always be people like me who will.
Did you ever meet George Bush?
Of course not. You must remember one thing about us humanists. We're great snobs and we don't meet the lower orders.
Do you think that the Bush years were the darkest in American history?
If they were any darker, I'd get a tin cup and a big dog.
So we can only improve, right? But I feel like
I don't
there
think
was
we're
such a surge
improving. But I say this because I'm disappointed by the regime.
I
This
feel that
doesn't
there was
realize
so much
it.
excitement, and I know that I've experienced real resistance to criticizing. So it's too soon, or people say, oh, but he's not McCain, or he's not Bush.
Well, that's no answer, of course.
What do you think of John McCain's story of his heroism?
He is the biggest phony that has ever been projected on the American screen. He makes Joe McCarthy seem like a hero. Somebody asked me during the campaign what I thought about him, and didn't I have to agree he was a great hero? I said, of course he's not a great hero. First, we'll never know what happened to the guys on his plane, the same story as with Bush. Did they get out or not? He's very silent on that. It is well known that he sang to the enemy, and he did broadcasts for the enemy. But we're not supposed to mention that because he's a great hero. Who says so? He says so. And one of them, one of those dum-dums on television, well, what, Mr. Vidal, would you do about him? And I said I would have had him court-martialed for the loss of his airplane. We don't have that many. They're very expensive. I'd like him to explain what happened. I'd like a study.